Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we're looking at an unidentified male, a John Doe, who was found May 10th, 1986. Now, sometimes I'll start with a missing person case, and then I'll go and look through the Jane Does and the John Does to see if there's somebody that was found maybe the same year or in that area about the same time. And sometimes I have found somebody that I thought, well, maybe it was 2 hours away and maybe it was around the same time, but then I'll forget to go from the John Doe's side and look, because then you have to look to see if there's somebody else that it's more likely to be. And some people go through these and they actually look for a death certificate. Like if somebody died and they have a death certificate and maybe the family didn't know there was a death certificate because they live far off, which I find interesting. It's an interesting, to me that's a really interesting way of doing it. So today I'm starting with a John Doe, and he was found May 10th, 1986. And if it's a female and they're not sure if it's a John Doe or a Jane Doe, often you'll find it under a John Doe as well, which, most of the time I'm pretty sure that the John Does are a John Doe and not a Jane Doe, but I thought I would mention that as well. So here we have an unidentified male. He was found May 10th, 1986 in Oregon, and they believe he died. It says estimated date of death 1920 to 1955. So when I went to do a search, I tried to do it before 1920 and a little bit after 1955, which probably isn't a good idea, but I did it anyway. And it says he's not recognizable, a possible suicide. He was between the ages of 30 and 55 years old. He was 5'7" to 5'9". Remnants of leather high-top style shoes, yellow metal-plated Sears and Roebuck pocket watch, wire-rimmed glasses, 4 brass tokens bearing the letters D and P, A, V, nickel-plated 1888. And I don't know what that's from. A penny dated 1919. A penknife with the insignia FOE, Fraternal Order of Eagles. A silver wall Eversharp mechanical pencil, a rusted revolver that was located near the remains with 1 spent cartridge case under the hammer. The victim's extremely degraded skeletal remains were discovered off of a forest road in the Tualatin Mountains. The remains appear to have been exposed for a long period of time. So then I go to look to see, who's missing between 1920 and 1955. That might have been between the ages of 30 and 55 and 5'7" to 5'9". And maybe this person was never even reported missing. You have to consider that. It could be somebody that was never reported missing. So we have this man. His name was Louis Lakin, and there's some images and documents. And it says he was 37 years old. He was 5'7" to 5'9", 145 to 155 pounds. He was last known to be somewhere between the logging camps outside of Gresham, Oregon, and Missoula, Montana. He had a family in the Portland area. They reported him missing in 1928 and searched extensively for him throughout the years, but they were never able to find him. And he had brown hair and blue eyes. And so we'll look. Here's a photo of him. And then we'll look at the document. And the document says, Mr. Fix-It, I have a brother missing since January 6, 1928. His name is Louis Lakin. I think he has been working in the logging camps between here and Missoula, Montana. He was a World War veteran, and any help in finding him would be appreciated. Greta Ellsworth, Route 1, Box 73, Gresham, Oregon. So, and then the next one we have January 1920, Portland, Oregon. And this says his family believes he has been missing since 1920. But I believe I did another video on him, and I believe that he may have actually been missing since 1915, because I think there was a newspaper article where they were trying to find him in 1915 which would put him 5 years before this. And he went missing from Portland, Oregon. It says he was 44 years old. So, and then we have this one, and he went missing in 1916, so that also would have been before 1920, from Longmont, Colorado, and there's a photo of him. So then it's probably not him either. And well, he looks a lot like a John Doe I looked at recently, though. Or maybe he just looks like another missing person. I can't remember if it was a John Doe or not. Anyway, according to the investigator's report for Mother's Compensation of the Boulder, Colorado Court, May 1917, John W. Gates, husband of applicant and father of children, he left home April 23, 1916, for no reason known to applicant, who does not know of his whereabouts now and has no word from him since leaving. Previous to leaving, he was a good provider and a good husband and a kind father. Applicant fears he met with an accident. Family stories include the theory that his wagon ran off of a mountain while hauling supplies to a mining company. The rumors also include a story that he was murdered. Brown hair, receding hairline. Oh, hold on. So now, I feel like I've seen him before somewhere. And I don't know if it's just him or if he just reminds me of somebody. Unidentified, chronological. Was it in Canada? See, I'm not even sure. This guy right here, 1932, 30 to 45 years old. Oh, that's who he reminds me of. This guy died from a gunshot wound in 1932, but he would have been 30 to 45 years old, and he would have been 48 years old or so by then. Oops. And for some reason, he reminds me of him. It's interesting, isn't it? Because of his hair and stuff. The way they did it and his facial shape. He does look a lot like him, doesn't he? Okay, so now I'm going to try to pull this up. Oh, yeah. He does remind me of him. So this one was interesting because I don't know if I just did a video on this. He used an alias of Albert Johnson, and they don't know who he was. And they think he may have been from the United States. They'd called him the Mad Trapper. He came to North Canada and he built a log cabin at Rat River. And he had a lot of money. They attended his cabin to investigate complaints about him that he was poaching trap lines. But I think he was getting gold because I think he was making a lot of money from gold, because when they said the contents of his pack, it talks about what he had. He had weapons and he had ammo. He had $2,410 in large bill, which is approximately $60,000 today. But he also had some gold dust. So I thought maybe he was getting gold somewhere. And maybe that's why somebody complained, because he was getting gold. And maybe he thought they were trying to steal his gold, because... Anyway, it says Albert Johnson, now dubbed the Mad Trapper, came to North Canada. He built a log cabin at Rat River. RCMP attended his cabin to investigate complaints made about him that he was poaching trap lines. Met with resistance, they returned with a search warrant, at which time he shot and wounded one of them. On another subsequent visit, there was a standoff, and he escaped after police blew up his cabin with dynamite. This started a 7-week chase over 150 miles of snowy mountainous territory, and below 50 and below 60 degrees Celsius temperatures. So 2 or more of the officers were injured, and another was killed before he himself was shot and killed. So, and then they buried him, but they never knew who he was, which I thought was very interesting. And I just saw this man, and when I saw him, he reminded me of him. So, and then the next one is Roy Frisch, and he went missing in 1934 from Reno, Nevada, and he was 46 years old. And Reno, Nevada seems a ways away from Oregon, so I don't think it would be him. But he is 5'8" to 5'9", 175 to 180 pounds. And here's an interesting story as well. At the time of his disappearance, Roy Frisch lived with other family members at 247 Court Street and was employed at the Riverside Bank as a cashier. He was scheduled to testify for the government against 2 people alleged to be involved in organized crime. At 7:45 on the evening of his disappearance, Roy Frisch left his home walking to the Majestic Theater, where he watched the movie Gallant Lady. After the movie, he was seen by a friend at the corner of Sierra and Court Streets. Roy Frisch never made it home, and he has not been seen since. He is believed to have met with foul play. Per the Reno Gazette-Journal in 1996, the Reno Police Department reopened his missing persons case. So, and he had brown hair, light brown, straight comb to the left side, and hazel eyes. And it talks about, there's other information you can pause and read as well. So, it's very interesting the way they dressed back then. And they gave his shoe size and his clothing size in 1934, which now later after that I stopped seeing the sizes of clothing and the sizes of shoes that were with missing persons cases, and only usually see them with the Jane Does and the John Does, and I have a huge complaint about that. So, oh, that's a nice photo. And then they have a newspaper article where they're trying to find out what happened to him. And you can pause that and read it as well. He's also a World War veteran. So, but I remember my dad, who back in the day, he would hear all this information from different people, and someone would say to him, "Did you hear about such and such?" And he would say, "Oh no, I didn't hear about that. What happened?" And they would tell them. And then somebody else would come to him and tell him about the same situation, but give him, maybe more or less information or different information. And they would say, "Hey, did you hear about such and such?" And he would say, "Oh no, what happened?" So if 6 different people came to him at different times during the day or the week asking him if he had heard about such and such, he would tell them all no, he hadn't heard anything about it. And instead of repeating the other information that he had gathered from other people to different people, he would just tell all of them, "No, I didn't hear anything. Go ahead and tell me about it. I'm interested, or something like that. Or, "Oh no, what happened," right? And reading about this, I can see why. And then we have this man, Everett Risk, I don't know how to pronounce it. And he went missing in 1934, and he was 20 years old, so he would be too young because it says you have to be 30 to 55 years old. And he was 5'7" to 5'9", though, 150 to 200 pounds. And let's see what his story is. On November 20th, 1934, Everett Risk set out alone into the Utah desert, taking 2 donkeys as pack animals. He was never seen or heard from again. Earlier in 1934, Risk had, we'll just call him Everett, had told his parents he would be unreachable for nearly 2 months. But about 3 months after his correspondence, they started receiving their son's uncalled for mail. They wrote a letter to the post office, and on February 7, 1935, a commissioner of Garfield County saw the letter and decided to form a search party with other men in the area. His donkeys were found near the north side of Davis Gulch, a canyon of the Escalante River. The only sign was a corral he had made at his campsite in Davis Gulch, as well as an inscription the search party found nearby with the words Nemo, November 1934. And I'm wondering what the inscription was on. Was that like a makeshift grave, or what was it on? Is that when he died, and was his nickname Nemo? Why did they put that N-E-M-O? What does that mean? Did that stand for certain words? Anyway, I wonder if somebody put that on there after he died, and maybe even as a memory of him that knew what happened, that had left and wasn't there anymore. The commissioner reported the discovery of the donkeys and the inscription to his parents in a letter dated March 8, 1935. On March 15th, after completing a last attempt to find him, Allen wrote a final note to the family calling an end to the search efforts. Later searches in late May and June 1935 included an aerial survey of the land from an altitude of 12,000 feet, covering the ground from Lee's Ferry to Escalante. On the ground, a party of 9 horseback riders joined the search, but discontinued their effort a week later. Some believe he may have fallen off a cliff or drowned in a flash flood. Others suspected he had been murdered. And he had brown hair, but they don't know, whoever did this don't know the color of his eyes. And he may have been wearing a Navajo bracelet with 3 turquoise stones. His bread roll, food, journal, paintings, cooking kit, and money were all missing. And he wore a size 9 shoe. See, even this gives the size of his shoes. But all of his things were missing, so... which is odd, isn't it? Maybe he went over a cliff or something and had the items with him. There's a nice photo. I like that photo. It kind of reminds me of that Jamie, that cook, Jamie Oliver. Just in this photo. Not in the other photos, but just that one. Anyway, and here's another photo of him. He looked genuinely happy. A lot of people smile and they just show their teeth like they're growling, and they don't look like they're genuinely happy, and I always feel like, wow, they kind of look crazy. And there's a picture of him. That's pretty cool. Pretty awesome, right? But the way he smiles, he looks like he's genuinely happy. And it's not like a phony smile where he's just showing his teeth. So, but he also looks too young to be this John Doe. But it's a lot of interesting cases that you stumble upon when you're looking to see who could this be. And I thought, wow, you know, even though it may not be them, and it's probably not some of them, some of the stories are just so interesting that I like to include them. And I don't know. See, this one was 1915. I'm sure of it. So I think this would have been too soon. Even though the family says since 1920. So to me, this John Doe could be Lakin, or maybe it could be Sigmund Myers, but I don't know. Or it could be somebody that was never even reported missing, right? There's just no way of knowing. So there's my video for right now, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to pray for their loved ones and their families, and thank you so much. Please feel free to leave comments, and have a great day. Bye-bye.